Stolen Focus, Why You Can't Pay Attention, and How to Think Deeply Again, by Johann Hari. Introduction. Picture this. A man and his 19-year-old godson are standing in a bizarre, shag-carpeted room in Memphis, Tennessee. The room has fake plants, a waterfall built into the wall, and green carpet not just on the floor, but on the ceiling too. They are in Graceland, the home of Elvis Presley. For the boy, this was a childhood dream. 10 years earlier, he had been obsessed with the King, singing Jailhouse Rock and making his godfather promise, that one day they would make the pilgrimage here together. But now that they're here, the dream has soured. The boy, whose name is Adam, is hunched in a corner, his face lit by the pale blue light of his phone, flicking endlessly through Snapchat. The man, our author Johann Hari, feels a surge of anger. They traveled 4,000 miles for this, on one condition, that Adam would leave his phone off and be present. But at every turn, the promise was broken. Surrounding them are dozens of other tourists, each holding a tour guide iPad, staring at a screen version of the room they are already standing in. Nobody is looking at anything but a screen. In a moment of pure frustration, Hari grabs his godson's phone and yells, "We can't live like this. You are missing your one and only life." But as the anger fades, he realizes something profound. The rage he feels toward his godson, and toward the blank-faced tourists, is really an anger he feels toward himself. He too feels his ability to be present, to think deeply, to simply be, cracking and breaking apart. He buys stacks of books he never reads, his attention pulled away by the endless scroll of social media. He feels like he's constantly running up a down escalator. This single, painful moment in Graceland sparked a 3-year, 30,000-mile journey. Johann Hari, an acclaimed investigative journalist and New York Times best-selling author, decided to find out what was really happening to our attention. He traveled the world, interviewing over 250 of the leading experts on focus, from neuroscientists in Moscow to sociologists in Melbourne, to uncover the truth. The result is his groundbreaking book, Stolen Focus. It sold hundreds of thousands of copies, igniting a global conversation about why we can't pay attention anymore. And what he discovered is a truth both shocking and liberating. Your inability to focus is not your fault. It is not a personal failure or a lack of willpower. Your attention, he argues, has been stolen by powerful forces in our society, from big tech to big food to the very way we work and live. In our journey today, we will follow Hari as he uncovers the 12 deep causes behind our attention crisis. By the end, you will not only understand why you feel so distracted, but you'll also see that there is a path back, a way for us to reclaim our minds, to think deeply again, and to start an attention rebellion of our own. This isn't just a summary of a book, it's an exploration into the fight for our own minds. Book summary. Our story begins where Johann Hari's personal crisis reached its peak, in a quiet beach town called Provincetown, at the very tip of Cape Cod. After the disastrous trip to Graceland, he decided to do something drastic. Convinced his own lack of discipline and his phone were the culprits, he booked a small room by the sea for 3 months, with no smartphone and no internet. He was going offline, for the first time in 20 years, in a desperate act of self-preservation. The first week was pure bliss. He bought a dumb phone with giant buttons, designed for the elderly, called a jitterbug. He woke not to an alarm, but to the sun and the sound of the ocean. He slept for 15 hours straight the first night. It felt as if he had been holding 2 screaming babies for years and had finally handed them over to a babysitter. The constant, frantic buzz in his mind quieted down. He felt a sensation he had to struggle to name. Yes, calm. He thought he had found the answer. The solution was simple. Ditch the tech. Reclaim your mind. But then, the second week began. And everything fell apart. He woke up with an angry panic, an intense craving for his phone, for his email. He felt like a part of his body was missing. When he tried to read the classic novels he'd brought, his mind couldn't settle. He scanned the pages of Charles Dickens the way you'd scan a blog post, manic and impatient, trying to extract the key points. Okay, he's an orphan. What's the point? He couldn't slow down. He realized he was experiencing withdrawal. He missed the validation, the constant stream of little signals from the web that said, "I see you. You matter." This painful experience was his first major clue. The problem wasn't just the technology itself, it was something deeper. His brain had been retrained, and simply removing the stimulus wasn't enough. He had to understand what had been done to him, and to all of us. This led him to uncover the powerful forces that are systematically degrading our attention. The first and most obvious culprit is the sheer speed and volume of information we face. Ari journeyed to Denmark to meet a physicist named Sune Lehmann, who conducted the largest study ever to answer a simple question: is our collective attention span really shrinking? By analyzing massive datasets, from Twitter trends and Google searches to movie ticket sales and even the rise and fall of topics in books since the 1880s, Lehmann and his team found definitive proof. Yes, something is changing. For over a century, topics have been coming and going faster and faster. The internet has dramatically accelerated this trend, but it didn't start it. What's causing this great acceleration? Lehmann's team built a complex model and found one clear mechanism. The more information you pump into a system, the less time people can focus on any single piece of it. Think of it like this: we are trying to drink from a fire hose. In 1986, the average person was exposed to the equivalent of 40 newspapers worth of information every day. By 2007, that had skyrocketed to 174 newspapers a day. This relentless flood forces us to skim, to jump from one thing to the next, just to keep up. As Lehmann told Hari, what we are sacrificing is depth. All of these things that require depth are suffering. It's pulling us more and more up onto the surface. This constant jumping between tasks comes with a heavy price. Ari traveled to MIT to interview one of the world's leading neuroscientists, Professor Earl Miller. Miller explained a fundamental, unchangeable fact about our brains. You can only consciously produce one or two thoughts at a time. That's it. We have a very limited cognitive capacity. The idea that we can multitask is a myth. What we're actually doing is juggling, switching our attention back and forth very quickly. And this switching comes with severe costs. First, there's the switch cost effect. Every time you get distracted from a task, say, by a text message, and then return to it, your brain has to reconfigure. You have to remember where you were and what you were thinking. This process wastes time and mental energy. If you're checking texts while working, you're not just losing the seconds spent on the text, you're losing the much longer time it takes to regain your focus. One study found that simply being interrupted by emails and phone calls caused a temporary drop in workers' IQ by an average of 10 points, twice the effect of smoking marijuana. Second, this constant switching makes you more prone to errors. Your thinking becomes more superficial because a significant portion of your brain power is spent just backtracking and correcting mistakes. And third, it drains your creativity. New ideas emerge when your brain has uninterrupted time to make connections between the things you've learned. If you're constantly switching, you deny your brain the space it needs for those innovative leaps to occur. The average office worker is now distracted once every 3 minutes. Most never get a single uninterrupted hour in a typical day. We've created, as Professor Miller puts it, a perfect storm of cognitive degradation. So, if our brains are designed for deep, single-task focus, how do we access that state? This question led Hari back to the work of a remarkable psychologist named Mihai Csikszentmihalyi. Mihai's story is incredible. As a boy in Italy during World War II, he witnessed the complete collapse of the adult world. He hid from Nazi bombs near the hanging corpses of men executed as collaborators. Convinced that grown-ups didn't know how to live a good life, he set out to understand what truly makes life worth living. He started by studying artists, rock climbers, and chess players, people who could lose themselves in an activity for hours on end, for no obvious reward. He discovered they all described a similar experience. A state of being so absorbed in what they were doing that their sense of self melted away, time disappeared, and they felt carried along by the experience itself. He named this state flow. Flow, Hari learned, is the deepest form of focus we are capable of. It is the antidote to distraction. But it doesn't happen by accident. To achieve flow, you need 3 key things. First, you must choose one, and only one, clearly defined goal. You must be monotasking. Second, that goal must be meaningful to you. Our brains are designed to pay attention to what matters to us. Third, the task should be at the very edge of your abilities. Not so easy that you get bored, but not so hard that you become anxious. Back in Provincetown, miserable and craving his phone, Hari realized he had created a vacuum. He had removed the distractions but hadn't replaced them with a source of flow. So he turned to his long-planned novel. He sat down with his broken, offline laptop and forced himself to write, day after day. It was hard at first, but by the fourth week, the flow states began to come. He was losing himself in the work, and the craving for distraction vanished. He discovered a profound lesson. To escape distraction, it's not enough to remove what's wrong. You must also add what is right. You must replace distraction with flow. But even with flow, there was another missing piece of the puzzle. Ari found himself taking long, aimless walks along the beach for hours, without a podcast or a phone, just letting his thoughts drift. He felt guilty at first. Wasn't this the opposite of focus? He soon discovered another group of scientists who were challenging the traditional view of attention. For over a century, psychologists used the metaphor of a spotlight to describe attention, the ability to narrow your focus onto one thing. But what happens when the spotlight turns off? Neuroscientist Marcus Reichelt discovered that even when our minds seem to be doing nothing, a specific network in the brain lights up with activity. He called it the default mode network. This is the state of mind wandering, or daydreaming. And far from being a failure of attention, scientists are discovering it is a different and essential form of attention. When your mind wanders, three crucial things are happening. First, you are making sense of your life. Your brain is processing what you've learned and connecting it to your own experiences. Second, you are making new connections. This is often when our most creative breakthroughs happen, when we step away from a problem and let our unconscious mind work on it. And third, you engage in mental time travel, reflecting on the past and planning for the future. In our hyper-stimulated world, we have lost the spaces for our minds to wander. Every spare moment, waiting in line, on the bus, is now filled by staring at a screen. We are suffering not just from a crisis of spotlight focus, but a crisis of mind wandering, robbing us of our ability to make sense of our lives. As his digital detox in Provincetown continued, Hari noticed another profound change. He was sleeping deeply and waking up feeling refreshed for the first time since he was a child. This led him to investigate a factor that affects us all, the quiet epidemic of exhaustion. Ari interviewed Dr. Charles Czeisler, a leading sleep expert at Harvard. Czeisler explained that 40% of Americans are chronically sleep-deprived, getting less than the minimum of 7 hours a night. This isn't a small problem. If you stay awake for just 19 hours, your cognitive impairment is equivalent to being legally drunk. When you're tired, your brain doesn't just shut down. It enters a state of local sleep, where parts of your brain are literally asleep while you are awake. This causes attentional blinks, tiny moments where your focus just cuts out. We often try to paper over this with caffeine, but as another expert explained, caffeine doesn't give you more energy. It just puts a post-it note over your fuel gauge, hiding how empty you really are. Why is sleep so important? While we're unconscious, our brains are incredibly active. They consolidate memories, transferring learning from short-term to long-term storage. And, remarkably, they perform a kind of brainwashing. A watery fluid washes through the brain, flushing out toxic waste products, what one scientist playfully calls brain cell poop. A brain that isn't cleaned becomes clogged and struggles to function. But Hari realized that these factors, speed, multitasking, loss of flow, mind wandering, and exhaustion, were only part of the story. They were symptoms of a deeper sickness. To find the source, he had to go to the heart of the machine that is redesigning our world, Silicon Valley. There, he met Tristan Harris, a former Google design ethicist. Harris's story begins with an unusual skill: magic. As a boy, he learned that the secret to magic isn't tricking the eye. It's about manipulating attention. Magicians understand our psychological weaknesses, our blind spots, our biases, and they exploit them to create illusions. At Stanford University, Harris enrolled in a class at the Persuasive Technology Lab, taught by Professor B.J. Fogg. This lab was dedicated to figuring out how to use the principles of psychology to design technology that could change people's behavior without them even knowing it. It was a class for modern-day magicians. Many of the students, including the future creators of Instagram, went on to build the apps that now dominate our lives. They were taught the principles of behaviorism, pioneered by B.F. Skinner, who discovered you could train a pigeon to perform bizarre actions by giving it carefully timed rewards. The hearts, likes, and retweets on social media are our modern-day pellets, training us to keep coming back. When Harris went to work at Google, he saw these principles being put into practice on a global scale. He was in the control room, watching as a handful of engineers made decisions that would shape the thoughts and feelings of a billion people. He saw that the entire business model was built on one metric: engagement. The goal was to maximize the time people spent staring at their screens, because more screen time means more data collected and more ads sold. Your distraction, he realized, is their fuel. This is the engine of what Harvard professor Shoshana Zuboff calls surveillance capitalism. These companies aren't just selling ads, they are selling us. They build a sophisticated model of you, a voodoo doll, as another tech dissident, Ozza Raskin, calls it. They gather every scrap of data about you, what you click, where you go, what you say, to make this doll more and more accurate. Then, they test what makes the doll twitch, figuring out your deepest vulnerabilities so they can sell that knowledge to advertisers who want to manipulate your behavior. This business model inevitably leads to technology designed to be maximally distracting. Ozza Raskin, the man who invented Infinite Scroll, the feature that keeps you scrolling endlessly through your feed, told Hari he calculated that his invention costs humanity the equivalent of 200,000 human lifetimes every single day. But there's an even darker side to this. The algorithms that decide what you see are designed to maximize engagement. And what have they learned about human nature? We stare at outrage longer than we stare at positivity. We are drawn to negativity. As a result, the algorithms have learned that if it's more enraging, it's more engaging. They systematically promote the most divisive, angry, and extreme content because that's what keeps us glued to the screen. Ari saw the terrifying real-world consequences of this in Brazil, where the far-right politician Jair Bolsonaro rose to power fueled by viral disinformation on Facebook and YouTube. When he won, his supporters chanted, "Facebook! Facebook! Facebook!" They knew who had helped them win. This isn't an accident. Leaked internal documents from Facebook's own scientists confirmed it. Our algorithms exploit the human brain's attraction to divisiveness. When the scientists propose solutions, executives shut them down. The system is working exactly as it was designed to. At this point, you might be thinking, this is overwhelming, but it's up to me to be stronger, to have more willpower. This is exactly how the tech industry wants you to think. Ari interviews Nir Eyal, another graduate of the Persuasive Tech Lab, who wrote the book Hooked: How to Build Habit-Forming Products. Eyal argues that the responsibility lies with us as individuals. He says we just need to use the tools provided, like the Do Not Disturb button. Push the fucking button, he tells Hari. Hari calls this cruel optimism. It's the idea of offering a simplistic individual solution to a massive systemic problem. He uses a powerful analogy: the obesity crisis. For decades, we were told obesity was a personal failing. We were sold diet books and told to have more self-control. But 95% of diets fail. Why? Because you can't solve a problem caused by an unhealthy food environment with individual willpower alone. You're trying to run up a down escalator. The same is true for our attention. It is not a fair fight. You, with your limited willpower, are up against 1,000 engineers on the other side of the screen whose job is to keep you hooked. Digital diet books won't solve this attention crisis, just as regular diet books didn't solve the obesity crisis. This led Hari to investigate the final, and perhaps most fundamental, set of causes: the dramatic changes to childhood. He tells the story of Lenore Skenazy, who, in 2008, let her 9-year-old son ride the New York subway home alone, the kind of thing she and every other parent did as a child, and was promptly branded America's worst mom. This incident revealed a massive shift. In just one generation, childhood has moved almost entirely indoors. The free, unsupervised play that defined childhood for all of human history has vanished. This has devastating consequences for attention. When children play freely, they learn crucial skills. They learn to be creative, to negotiate, to read social cues, and to cope with frustration. They develop what psychologists call intrinsic motivation, the ability to pursue things because they are meaningful, not for some external reward. This is the very foundation of deep focus. Without it, kids struggle. Our schools are making this worse. Driven by a frenzy of standardized testing, they have stripped out play, recess, and anything that fosters curiosity. Children are being forced into a system that deadens their intrinsic motivation and makes many of them feel incompetent. Contrast this with Finland, the country with the most successful schools in the world. There, children don't even start formal school until age 7. Before that, they just play. They have almost no homework, very few tests, and by law, teachers must give them 15 minutes of free play for every 45 minutes of instruction. The result? Finnish kids are among the most literate and focused in the world. Ari concludes that our children's attention problems are not a flaw in them. They are a flaw in the world we have built for them. So, what is the way out? If individual solutions are not enough, what can we do? Ari argues we need an attention rebellion, a movement to reclaim our focus. He proposes 3 big, bold goals. 1. Ban surveillance capitalism. Just as we banned lead in paint once we knew it damaged children's brains, we must ban the business model that is based on hacking our attention. This would force companies like Facebook to switch to a subscription model or become public utilities, aligning their interests with ours. 2. Introduce a 4-day workweek. Ari tells the story of a company in New Zealand that switched to a 4-day week for the same pay. The result? Stress went down, and productivity actually went up. People who are rested can focus better. 3. Rebuild childhood around free play. We must create spaces and a culture where children can once again play freely, explore their world, and develop the foundations of healthy attention. This may sound like an impossible fight, but Hari reminds us that every major social change, from women's rights to gay rights to the weekend itself, seemed impossible at first. They were won by ordinary people who banded together and demanded something better. We are not medieval peasants begging at the court of King Zuckerberg. We are the free citizens of democracies, and we own our own minds. The fight to reclaim them, Hari concludes, may be the defining struggle of our time. Commentary. After diving deep into Johann Hari's stolen focus, it's hard not to feel a sense of both profound anger and immense relief. The anger comes from the realization that our daily struggle to focus, to think, and to be present isn't just a personal weakness. It's the result of a deliberate, profit-driven system designed to hijack our minds. But the relief comes from the book's central, liberating message: it's not your fault. For so long, we've been told that our distraction is a moral failing, that we just need to try harder, be more disciplined, or find the right productivity hack. Ari systematically dismantles this myth, showing us that we are like people trying to stay thin while being force-fed junk food from morning till night. No amount of individual willpower can consistently win against an environment that is constantly working against you. This reframing is the book's greatest gift. It moves the conversation from self-blame to collective action. It tells us that the solution isn't to find a better digital diet book, but to change the toxic food supply. The most powerful lesson, for me, is the connection Hari draws between our individual attention and our collective ability to solve problems. He argues that a society that can't pay attention is a society that can't face its biggest challenges. The climate crisis is the most urgent example. We are living in a house that is on fire, but our smoke alarms are being disabled by a flood of algorithm-fueled outrage and trivial distractions. A distracted population is a docile one, unable to organize, distinguish truth from lies, and hold power to account. Reclaiming our focus isn't just about being more productive or feeling calmer. It's about our survival as a functioning democracy and as a species. So, where do we begin? The systemic changes Hari calls for, banning surveillance capitalism, a 4-day work week, are monumental, and they will take a long, organized fight. But the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. Here are a few simple, practical actions you can take today, inspired by the principles in this book, to begin your own personal attention rebellion. 1. Schedule a do-nothing walk. For just 30 minutes today, go for a walk and leave your phone at home. Don't listen to a podcast or music. Just walk, and let your mind wander. This isn't wasted time. It's essential mental maintenance. You'll be surprised by the ideas and clarity that emerge from the silence. 2. Practice monotasking. Choose one important task you need to do, whether it's homework, reading, or a creative project. Set a timer for 25 minutes. Put your phone in another room, or better yet, a case safe. Close all other tabs on your computer, and dedicate yourself to that one task. Experience what it feels like to give one thing your undivided attention, even for a short period. 3. Reclaim your sleep. Tonight, make a commitment to protect the last hour of your day. Put all screens away. Don't scroll through social media in bed. Instead, read a physical book, listen to some calm music, or just talk with your family. Treat your sleep not as a luxury, but as the non-negotiable foundation of your mental and physical health. That was a deep dive into Stolen Focus by Johann. We've covered the core arguments and the most powerful stories today, but I'll be honest with you, a summary can only take you so far. The real magic happens when you read the book for yourself. It's in the quiet moments, when a particular study or a simple phrase hits you in a way you didn't expect. This summary is designed to help you decide if this book is worth your time. If anything we've talked about has resonated with you, I truly believe you should grab a copy. Reading it isn't just learning. It's an experience that can genuinely change the way you see the distracted world around you, and your role within it. A link to the book is in the description. Also, if you found this summary valuable and want to continue exploring life-changing ideas, please hit that like button and subscribe to Billionaire's Bookshelf. It tells us we're on the right track and ensures you won't miss our next journey into another incredible book. Let's keep learning and growing together.